founders call this the tyranny of the majority. The majority will, if it can, put its own interests above those of the minority and generally not hesitate to deprive it of its rights and freedoms. This is why Madison was preoccupied with the problem of what he called factions, the word he used for any kind of organized pressure group. Madison deemed both minority and majority factions dangerous, yet of the two types of factions, he considered a majority faction to be more dangerous. Why? Because minority factions can be curbed by the power of the majority. But who will curb the majority? This is the central purpose of the Constitution: to limit, frustrate, and in some cases block majority rule. As Madison put it, the great task was to devise a document that would first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself. First, the Constitution had to be written down. We're so accustomed today to national constitutions that we need to remember that prior to the American Constitution, no country in the world had one. And since the adoption of the U.S. Constitution, many countries have had constitutions that came and went, some lasting just a few years. Yet the American Constitution has now endured for nearly 2.5 centuries. The original document was written on 4 pieces of parchment and is 4,543 words long. Its remarkable brevity perfectly matches its purpose: to create a framework for limited government. To Madison, this meant that the authority of the federal government should cover certain listed or enumerated areas. Outside those areas, the government has no authority. Second, the rights of the citizens had to be spelled out. That's why the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, known as the Bill of Rights, contain a series of limitations on government. The rights in the Bill of Rights typically begin, "Congress shall make no law." Congress shall make no law restricting free speech or freedom of the press or the free exercise of religion. Third, the concept of representative government had to be clearly defined. Representative government means that the people do not rule directly. They rule by electing representatives who govern in their stead. Madison counted this practice a radical departure from the direct democracy of the ancient Athenians as the distinguishing mark between democracy and a republic. A large and extended society, Madison argued, can function effectively only as a republic. And a republic is a much better guard against tyranny of the majority than a democracy, in which, by definition, the majority can do whatever it wants. Fourth, the power within the government must be divided. The Constitution separates power between an elected legislature charged with making laws, an elected executive charged with enforcing them, and an appointed judiciary empowered with resolving legal disputes. A further division happens between the national government and the states, so that some powers are exercised at the national level, others at the state and local level. Fifth, mutual oversight, checks and balances, was necessary to restrain the power of the individual branches. Because Madison understood how easy it is for a country to devolve into tyranny, he ensured that each of the 3 branches of the government act as a check on the power of the other 2. Congress has the power to make laws, but the president can veto them, and vetoes can be overridden only by congressional supermajorities. The president and his executive branch enforce the laws, but there is congressional and judicial oversight. The judiciary interprets the Constitution and the laws, but judges are nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate. This is not a complete list, but it gives a clear picture of Madison's ambition: to give America a political system that would promote freedom by making it very hard for the human appetite for power over others to ever be realized. He succeeded, thus far. I'm Dinesh D'Souza for Prager University.
Thank you. So, well, we see, we have seen this on the last show, but I really had to bring it back to make the point that we are looking at the elements of building a lasting nation. And one of the things that is so unique about the United States is the fact that it is the first nation ever to have a written down constitution. And many other countries followed after them, learned from them, and wrote down their constitution. Now, so we have the the Constitution as a document that is considered sacred. It is value held in highest authority, and it becomes the framework of the nation. And everything else revolves around the Constitution. And everything that will be done has to be justified by the Constitution. You see, when there is that kind of an agreement that a particular document, no matter how faulty it is, you know, in the beginning, because of course nothing is perfect, but no matter how faulty or weak or however it looks like, the people, you know, of course, eventually they will improve on it. But the authority that is placed on the Constitution becomes a very, 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 very important point. One of the things that was remarkable for me when I traveled to the United States in 2020 was the U.S. Constitution. It's not just being held as the Constitution, but also it is made available to the people. I got my copy, and it's online for download. You can see the Americans, not just that, but even within the United States, you always hear every day someone referring to the Constitution. The Constitution is the basis for people's liberty. The Constitution is the basis for what they do in many, many cases. Whatever they do it based on the Constitution. And people's rights, people's liberty are based on the Constitution. The Constitution becomes a very, very important document. Even though many people on the left are trying to undermine the Constitution, yet the Constitution stands out as the reason why the United States is what it is, and how it operates and how it does things. So it's really important to understand that for any nation that is going to really stand, and for any nation that is going to last, it must have a clear-cut constitution, a constitution that is valid, a constitution that everybody submits to it, both the political class, the intellectual class, and the common man. Everybody must be equal before the Constitution. Everybody must operate within the framework of the Constitution. Everybody must do everything they are doing within the boundaries of the Constitution. If anybody has to live outside the boundaries of the Constitution, it will be tyrannical. You know, nobody is above the Constitution. Everybody should be under the Constitution, and the desires and ambitions of men must be regulated by the Constitution. That's really very important. The Constitution is the basis. And all of us in Africa, those who live in Africa precisely, even in the West, even in the United States, you discover that the only way where tyranny begins is when they begin to trample on the Constitution. In Africa, hardly do we know anything about the Constitution. I don't even know, at my age, I don't know the Constitution of Nigeria. I don't know exactly. There was a time I tried to get it online and tried to look at what was inside. Because there's no emphasis placed on the Constitution. Try to study the Constitution of Ghana, I did the same thing. And I'm in the Ivory Coast, try to get the Constitution of the Ivory Coast. It is something that is only talked about in the courts of law and in the National Assembly. You hear them talk about the Constitution. But the common man is basically separated from the Constitution. And that's really a big problem. If there's a Constitution that everybody should abide with, shouldn't everybody know the Constitution personally and understand the Constitution and use it personally? That's how it should be. Now, that's one of the things that makes the United States really superior, because they value the Constitution. They take the Constitution literally. They take it seriously, and they try their best, even with a lot of effort from evil men to undermine the Constitution. Americans still value the Constitution and work based on the Constitution, and they print the Constitution. Many people on their own, from their own money, print the Constitution and distribute it to the people free of charge. It is incredible. It is really important. That's one point we are missing. Quickly, we're going to look at another video. But before then, let's get this out of the way. Let's get this out of the way, and be right back.
Everything that's reported on television isn't always true, but it should be. NTD, the power of truth. Available 24/7 on television and streaming platforms.
Dreams are potential seeds. They need someone to believe in them. They need someone to finance them. And they need someone to embrace them. Partner today with the World Mission Center, Abidjan, the Ivory Coast, and help us win Africa for Christ. All right, so welcome back to the show. This is David McQuell, and you are on Global Impact. Thank you so very much for tuning in, staying in touch. Thank you so very much. I hope that you are having some good time. We would like to hear from you, please. So always, you will see our email address scrolling down the bottom banner of the screen. So you can leave us a message, let us know what you think. You can ask questions about missions, ask questions about Africa, ask questions about anything. You can point out something that you feel we are doing, we are missing, or what you think we can improve on. We would really love to hear that. Thank you so very much. We appreciate that today, and we appreciate it always. Thank you so very much. Well, so we're going to be looking at this video again, Dinesh D'Souza, with another important video on the elements of the founding of America. And we can see a lot of points that we can actually go up from there and which are applicable everywhere in the world. The United States founding fathers said they were building a new idea of government that will be for all ages and for all the people of the world. So it wasn't limited to America only. I wish that every nation would adopt this great pattern of government, the republic, that the representative republic that the United States founded. And I tell you, every country would have done exceptionally well as the US has done it. All right, so now we're going to be looking at John Adams next.
List, but it gives a clear picture of Madison's ambition to give America a political system that would promote freedom by making it very hard for the human appetite for power over others to ever be realized. He succeeded, thus far. I'm Dinesh D'Souza for Prager University. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is the shared goal of every American. The U.S. Constitution was written to make it possible. We all have a pretty good idea about what life and liberty mean, but what about the last part of the phrase, the pursuit of happiness? That's a little harder to pin down. Let's give it a try. The 17th century English philosopher John Locke spoke narrowly of the rights to life, liberty, and property. The Declaration of Independence widened the scope to something far grander, the quest for what Aristotle termed the true end of all human endeavor, happiness itself. We think today of happiness in relativistic terms, something each person pursues in their own way. For example, in Shakespeare's Hamlet, Polonius advises Laertes, "To thine own self be true." In other words, be yourself. We hear this a lot today. To John Adams, America's second president and a seminal figure in the creation of the country, this was bad advice. For Adams and the founders generally, happiness was a modus vivendi, a way of living expressed by how one conducted oneself, especially in public. Adams understood that people are an imperfect amalgam of the admirable and the abominable, that being yourself does not automatically lead to good character. It's more likely, in fact, to lead to self-absorption. The only way to attain a good character is, like everything else, to work at it. The best way to do this, Adams contended, was literally to imagine a noble character. Here we're talking about character like a character in a play, and then strive to become that character. Walk like that character, think like him, feel like him, act like him. Over time, through the result of continual effort and the slow working of habit, one can become that person. Adams practiced what he preached. In this way, he became a public figure, both incorruptible and unfailingly honest. He became the best version of himself. This takes us back to the founders' conception of happiness. They subscribed to the Aristotelian belief that genuine happiness is achieved when the activity of the soul is in perfect harmony with virtue. None of the founders reflected on this idea more than John Adams. Not only did he want his own life to be defined by virtue, he also wanted the infant republic to be built on it. Without virtue, he believed, America could not succeed. Today, the term virtue seems anachronistic, a notion from the past. But to Adams, America's survival as a free country depended on it. The preservation of liberty, he wrote, depends on the intellectual and moral character of the people. As long as knowledge and virtue are diffused generally among the body of a nation, it is impossible they should be enslaved. In a monarchy, Adams noted, the people don't need virtue. They can be as vicious and foolish as they please because all political responsibility lies in the hands of the king and his retinue. In a republic, however, the people are the government, so the virtue of the state is a reflection of the virtue of the people. Given that human nature is deeply flawed, this created an obvious problem of which Adams was painfully aware. I have seen all along my life, he observed, such selfishness and littleness that I sometimes tremble to think that although we are engaged in the best cause that ever employed the human heart, the prospect of success is doubtful, not for want of power or of wisdom, but of virtue. How could the new nation develop a virtuous citizenry? A devout Christian with enormous respect for the Jews and the Hebrew Bible, Adams certainly saw belief in God and fear of his judgment as indispensable. So was a proper education. But he did not think that these were enough. A virtuous government would also be necessary. Here is where a clearly delineated and easily understood constitution would be essential, and no one worked harder than Adams to create one. His focus was to give citizens the ability to thwart the conniving, corrupt, power-lusting politicians for which he had so much contempt. Once identified, they could simply be voted out of office and better people could take their place. Additionally, good government would attract good people, capable leaders whose ambition could be enlisted on the side of virtue. Arguably, we are a long way from having the kind of leaders elected by the kind of people that Adams wanted the American constitutional system to help create. And we are more likely to think of pursuing happiness in narcissistic terms than in the way Adams and the founders perceived it. Perhaps it is only by reflecting on our political problems as a reflection of flawed human nature and on Adams' proposed remedies, beginning with the development of good character in each citizen, that America has a chance of finding its way back to the path on which the founders so wisely and deliberately placed us. I'm Dinesh D'Souza for Prager University.
Wow. That is truly incredible. And we have come to the end of the show today. That's something to think about, right? It's incredible. I really appreciate Prager University for all this great stuff that they keep, providing out for us there. And thank you also for being on the show tonight, watching and listening and taking notes. I hope that we become a virtuous people. We develop ourselves, and of course, the kind of government we get is a reflection of the kind of people we are. If we are a virtuous people, then we will have a virtuous government. And that's what John Adams was stressing on, which is really true. If we are corrupt in ourselves and pursue selfish aims, we will elect our own selves into authority and have a bunch of corrupt people, selfish people sitting right there. God help us. Thank you so much for tuning in today. This is Glow Impact on TCATV.com. God bless you. See you tomorrow.